Donc je le rappelle pour tout le monde, je le dis en français pour tout le monde, donc si quand vous avez des questions, vous demandez le micro, comme ça, comme c'est enregistré, ça permet d'avoir vos questions, qu'on les entende, sinon on entend un truc au fond. I'll do the introduction in English, Sophia? Yes? Vite fait? So it's a pleasure to have today for the fourth masterclass Sofia Avramidou with us. So Sophia is a classical contemporary composer from Greece, and we have a common history because we are working now for a program that we are going to release in October, which is a mixed between musicians of Orchestre National de Jazz and musicians from Ensemble Contemporaine. And Sophia is one of the three people that is writing for this program, along with Andy Emler and myself. So we are very happy to have her with us today. And as for every masterclass we did here, feel free, if you have questions, you just raise your hand. And I think that the purpose here is not to have something very, academic, but also to be able to have this exchange and that you ask a lot of questions about stuff that you want to know. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Frédéric. I'm gonna also make a small. I'm gonna speak a little bit about my personal path in music. So my first contact with composition and contemporary music was, I think, the 2009, where I began my studies in composition at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And before I had a quite different music direction, although in the age of 5 I started my piano lessons and classical studies and Western music. Although in the same time, alongside, I've also started my involvement with traditional music, so the music transmitted orally. As you know, I am Greek, for who doesn't know. I come from a country with completely different musical roots, but also from a family that had a great love of authentic traditional music. So the house was always full of instruments I discovered during my childhood. Especially from the age of 12, I started my studies in Byzantine music, hymnology, which is related to the ancient Greek musical system. And then I studied also 2 traditional instruments, oud and ney. And also I had some singing and vocal improvisation lessons. Traditional music, I feel that it was always like a kind of a part of my nature because instinct and intuition in general were my main conductors. So I discovered music and the love for music through my voice, because from when I remember myself, I was always singing. Today I just realized that performing freedom of a music that is mainly made dynamically has formed all what I am entirely and musically today. So I started composing because I wanted to learn more how I could define and to structure all what worked in me more, let's say, improvisationally and more instinctively. So as I told you, I started the composition in 2009, finishing my bachelor and master studies in the Aristotle University. Then I went in Rome, where I finished second master in the Academy of Santa Cecilia, having as a teacher Ivan Fedele. And then I came in Paris, where I got some lessons with Yann Marège and Jean-Luc Hervé in the Conservatory of Boulogne. And then there was my first contact with acousmatic and electronic music. And hopefully later I was accepted and selected from IRCAM to make Cursus the 2019. I'm going to start with this piece. It's a piece I composed in 2021. Géranomachie is the title, and I composed it for a large ensemble, the Ensemble Intercontemporain, and in collaboration with IRCAM. So as a composer, I'm mostly inspired by the literature. I love literary nonsense, myth, tales. I love rather grim stories, Lovecraft, Lewis Carroll, theatrical plays. I have a preference to the aesthetic of Martin McDonagh. I think because they are full of explosions of contrasts with a dramaturgy that is always oscillated between something very balanced and after something imbalanced, and all of these contrasts and like unexpected events. And I feel that my music also have very contrasting and contradictory sides. And as a composer, I think that I also oscillate between something very unconscious and, let's say, intuitive, and in the same time something fully conscious and controlled. Géranomachie is the first work I feel that I came closer to my personal poetic research of sound and instrumental gesture. It's something that probably I've been looking for through my previous works, maybe more unconsciously, and something that concerns the way I think, and my music. It's like the poetic imagination, because for me a sound can also refer to poetic images that may occur from the literature or even from something more conscious, like fears, dreams, fantasies, I don't know, whatever we have. And all of these reflections are particularly important for me and for my music. So in this piece, I'm not looking for an abstract exploration of sound, but more like a poetic research through the sound. The title, Géranomachie, comes from the Greek word geranos, which is a bird, cranes actually, and machi, that it's the battle, and derives from the homonymous and mythological literary topos that refers to bloody battles between the human and the birds. Okay. I thought it was close to me. I forgot to tell you that if you want to ask anything, you can just interrupt my presentation and to ask. The story, in few words, refers to migratory population of birds that each year reach the coast to pose their eggs, so to generate life, and there they find a local population of dwarfs, human, ready to fight them. So the use of this topic, I think that the most important and interesting thing for me, bonjour, is that this topic has been used all across the world and also from different populations and cultures. That they were not in contact with the other. For example, we have it in Greek literature, in texts of Homerus and Herodotus, in Latin funeral art and mythology, also in some myths of Native Americans and some tales of Chinese Taoist literature written even before the 3rd century. So as you see, totally different cultures and countries, but still the same characters and the same contrapositions. Here, just give you some representations of the battle in ceramics housed in various museums. So based to these references and these sharp contrasts, I created my different sound masses, dealing mainly with orchestration of the timbre. I created various textures with sound references that one symbolize the element of the sky or the element of the life. So like different nuances of breathy sounds, or like motion, fluidity, and kind of freedom of the gesture. And from the other hand, we have the element of the earth, and in another dimension of the element of the death also. So it's more like kind of rigid and solid, percussive, mechanic sounds. I just give you two musical examples here of the two different sound masses I created. The first one that for me symbolize more like the air sounds I said before, and the second all the element of the earth. So all of these like repetitive and recursive structures having a very intense rhythmical like character, and orchestrated by different kind of pizzicati, battuti, ricochet, slaps, etc. First one. So it's a kind of airy sounds, you know, different like vowels you inside the mouthpiece of the winds, or like in the brasses I use some plunger sardine that like with sort of movement create this kind of oscillation, this kind of wah-wah effect, airy effect, and the second one. Yes.
The low frequency,
it's a rumble effect. It's electronics. I'm gonna give you some information about the speaker configuration here and the system of spatialization we used. And we had 25 speakers, so it's like ambisonic fourth order system, like a dimension, three dimension space in a dome setup. And we use also an algorithm that it's called Boynt's artificial life program. It's like a kind of, it simulates the flocking behavior of the birds. It's like a modulation of a bird mass. This algorithm is mostly, it's random, but you can also like control somehow 3 parameters and like to control the reaction of the mass. These 3 parameters is the separation, which is to avoid crowding local flock matters. The second is the alignment, that it's the points attempt to match the velocities of their closer. And the third is the cohesion, where the points move toward the center of the mass, of their neighbors. And I give you also a representation, a visual representation of the algorithm, just to see the different shapes, that random shapes that are generated by the algorithm. I found it quite interesting to give another dimension to this poetic idea of you know, the motion, fluidity, and the sky, this kind of physical movement. Like I found very interesting to give also a spatial dimension to this idea. So you see the different shapes created by the algorithm. Imagine that in sound, diffused in a 3D dimension. We also use different kind of spatialization for the sound, but this is like mostly we use a granular spatialization through the algorithm of the points. Well, I can go ahead. I'm going to present some sound examples and processing we did during the process of the electronics. But in general, the final result, it's like a result of many, many different processes. I also used Ableton Live to build new sounds using some maquettes we did with the ensemble. And Reaper in the end, because it's the only program I personally know that I can work in a multi-channel file. So I sculpt the final sound and I made the final editing and mixing through Reaper. About the granular spatialization, we used this kind of spatialization to many sounds by granulating the input stereo files in multi-channel and then sending each grain to different point of the algorithm. So in these particular examples, we took the recordings of the flapping of a pigeon, and it was a little bit messy because there was a lot of distortion we had to clean up because the poor pigeon was like approaching the microphones all the time. So we had to clean them up, and after we made a clean maquette with a flapping sequence, which after we spatialized through the Boyne's algorithm. So to the first example, you just have this flapping sequence of the recordings. I tried to make a binaural editing, mixing for all of this. I don't know if it works with speakers. A little bit. So, yeah.
C'est toi qui l'as enregistré, le pigeon?
No, no.
Ah bon?
We find it. Don't ask me where.
Ah oui. Non, mais c'est... oui, c'est pas un pigeon que tu as capté, c'est des pauvres pigeons. Mais
No,
non,
I didn't find the pigeon, and I did no.
Okay.
No, it was too much
Non, mais
complicated
comme tout à l'heure,
for
tu as
the
dit...
time we had.
Voilà. Comme tout à l'heure, tu as dit le pauvre pigeon, je crois que...
Yeah, I imagine it because I listened to the sound and it was really. We cleaned up the file, so who did the recordings should be very grateful to to us. So that was the first sound example. The second one, it's like always the same sound file, but we also use a modulable delay in frequency and duration of the buffer. So based on given small values, that creates a sort of like metallic high-pitched sound. When I was walking, I call it metallic birds. imagine all of these sounds, all of these kind of different dimensions of the same sound in the same time, and with the spatialization of it creates really a sort of uniformity, especially because even the orchestration I did also, it's really similar. Stop and I go to the next one. Then the third sound example, it's again the same flapping, where we made a cross synthesis with a colored noise file. So having different dimensions of the same material, actually, we also there are also other sounds we made where the bird sound file has been concatenated with a part of airy sounds I composed for the woodwinds, giving in this way the same sort of movement and pulse between instruments and electronics. So the combination and mixing of these sounds with the acoustic part gives the feeling of a very organic and uniform sound environment, like a sort of different dimensions and sides.
Maybe, Sophia, I can ask a question for everybody. Is everybody here used to this way of working with mixed music? I mean, music that is using electronic and acoustic instruments, and the way of mixing, because I think one important part of the stuff that you are speaking now about is the fact that there is a really very important part of the composition when you work with mixed music, that is building a kind of sound library that you will use as orchestral tools to mix with the ensemble, right? And I think that when you're used to it, as you are, or I already used it a lot also in some music I wrote, maybe I want to just to be sure that it's very clear for everybody that there is a kind of process, which is a kind of orchestration. I think it's part of orchestration.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
But already
voilà. Juste pour être sûr que, just to be sure that for everybody understand that this is a big part of orchestration when you mix electronic and acoustic
for the time,
instruments.
just presenting the electronic process and all the treatments we use and the filters and kind of different kind of synthesis. I can give you some information if you want about like definitions, or I'm not sure it's gonna because practically that, I mean, if you don't really work with that, you can't like understanding as a theory, I think. I don't know. Do you have any questions for the time?
I was wondering, after you created all the sounds you wanted, how do you imagine it in the band, and how how do you create the final thing? Like, is it all organized before? So
not at all.
No,
I think that, and if it's not like this, should be like this. When we work in mixed music, it's something that happen simultaneously, in a way that there is not like we orchestrate first the acoustic and the instrumental part, and after we just orchestrate some holes or we let some holes to make electronics. No, it's really connected and linked So many times I start having an idea, the sound, an acoustic-like sound, and I was looking to find ways to orchestrate it. So it's not that I have some tools. I work by default for the electronics. It's really the need of the music and of the sound. So then you go and you search for solutions, and especially me, that I really like to work and to create very organic sound masses with the sound uniformity, where you don't really realize what it's from electronic and what comes from the acoustic part. There you should be really at the same time to work with both of them. Sometimes I just, by experimenting, I create like an electronic sound that after I search for ways to orchestrate it. I'm going to speak also about this because you can do the opposite also. But let's say it's like it's a balance between the two. You're grooving between the two words. Nothing was prepared from before, if I answered the question. So here, I suppose that you don't know what means concatenative synthesis. I try to give a very simple definition. It's like mostly, we use two different sounds here, okay? We use the sound of the ensemble, recording one maquette we did with the ensemble, and after we used my voice screaming. So in this way we concatenate the two sounds. It's like you have, we call the one sound corpus. So the concatenative synthesis goes to the amplitude waveform of the corpus and makes some calculations of various parameters of each sample, and then make the same calculation for the target sound and try to find the results of the corpus that match to the target and to adapt them to it. So here we have first the ensemble recording, and after the process with electronics, so the concatenative synthesis with my voice screaming. And like the same thing concatenated with a voice. And with the voice. Is it clear that it's the same form, no? Another treatment, another process that we used, it was the use of the samplers. We actually recorded different sizes of stones, and then we fed them to different samplers. And we created a MIDI file using the simulation of the ensemble, which we loaded into the samplers, and we achieved this kind of a stone rocked contrapoint sound that has the same morphology of what happened to the instruments, because as I showed you before, it's for the part with the pizzicati and the slaps and the very rhythmic and repetitive parts. So here the first is just the ensemble, the recording of the ensemble. Too loud, just let me know because I... Okay, that is the sound of the ensemble with no electronics. Imagine that we mix this with this. Yes.
Do you find that like you already know what you want to do, or is there like a lot of trial and error experimentation, like just like a composer with like acoustic notes? You're like, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Oh, wait, this is the exact thing that I want to do. Or is it like after all these years of working with electronics, you're like, this is
You
exactly.
speak about the electronics or the composition of
the electronics, like
the electronics.
Yeah.
It's that in that particular case, as I told before, always having these two elements in my mind: the sky and the earth, and all of these. I know, in very symbolic, of course, way of thinking, because I don't make narrative music. But first, I ask myself how I can approach these two different elements. Then I just having like I don't know, I imagine a sound, and I orchestrate it for the instruments. And then I start asking myself how I can make it match with the sound in electronics in order to, again, to achieve this organicity between the two. To be honest, before even composing this part, having, again, these elements in my mind, I wanted to record just the sound of the Stones. So if you want, the Stones gave me the idea of how to approach the instruments and the orchestration of the instruments, and after I also found a way to use them with the samplers. And now you can ask how. A very important information is that we had the click track. Okay, I was sure that you were going to ask, and it's normal because all of these kind of effects and processes, they don't work if they don't match exactly rhythmically to what happened on the stage. That means that we had a click track. It's not the conductors are not happy with click track. It's normal, but I can assure you, this is my personal sense. When I listen to the music, I feel that you don't really feel this click track. That the sound has like really something very physique, you know, and it was the only way to match the exact rhythm to these two different electronic and instruments, and plus I avoid to have live treatments when I have to deal with such a big ensemble because it's risky, and I prefer to give a sense of live treatments by using fixed sounds. I find it much more safe, and with a click track you can really achieve this result of something live, you know, that happened in real time.
Oui, juste, je peux répéter pour les Français un truc un peu sur le procédé. Donc en fait, il y a la partie qui est jouée par l'orchestre, mais cette partie, elle prend une partition qui est en MIDI. Et en fait, c'est la partition MIDI dans laquelle on assigne à chaque note MIDI un sample de pierre et qui donne ce résultat et donc on a une sorte de double de la partition qui est la partition avec l'électronique, enfin la partition jouée par l'électronique, et c'est pour ça qu'au final il faut qu'il y ait qu'on est obligé de le faire avec un clic, parce qu'en réalité si l'orchestre ne joue pas exactement au tempo dans lequel a été donné le fichier MIDI, en fait on a l'effet qui se perd, parce que l'objectif là c'est d'avoir quelque chose qui se mélange, comme dit Sophia, qu'on détecte pas l'électronique et l'acoustique, que tout ça soit un tout.
And here maybe, okay, you can say that, okay, the rhythm, it sounds more abstract. Everything is written, okay, everything is controlled, but it sounds more like granular. But before, what I show you with the concatenation and with the imprint of the ensemble to the ensemble and voice in the concatenation, if it doesn't match in the exact time, it's a mess. It's really ugly. Another thing here, as shown in the slide, I start with the electronics, and then I have the recording of the ensemble. Why? Because in this part, the composition, as I say before, is based on this particular electronic sound. So we had this kind of sound that comes from a freezer, whose sound has been stretched for a long time, and we also use a pitch shift. You know what all of these are? Freezer, pitch shift. Sorry. So we slightly, we have this kind of pitch shift that slightly, gradually change the pitch and gives like a sense of an exponential glissando, long glissando. And we use the TS2 for audio editing, for the pitch shift and the stretch. It's a program, the TS2, based to Here Comes Super VP. And so we, having this sound in electronics, I used Orchidea, which is like the assistant orchestration that searches for combinations of orchestral sounds to match to a target sound. So in simple words, just to understand what Orchidea does, it's make different calculation and give you some like options, orchestrational options that match to the electronic sound you have. Okay, ways to orchestrate the instruments. But me, I just wanted to have like an idea about the spectrum and about the generated pitches and some rhythmical structures also, because regarding the orchestration of the timbre, I wanted to be free to make my own orchestration. So the first one is the sound, this kind of glissando, this stretched sound. It's just the electronics, okay? Of the composition for the ensemble. Here I just have this particular bars. The first one, it's a sound and we created in electronics. Okay, it's just stretching with pitch shifting, and based to this sound, I use the assistant orchestration, which is a program called Orchidea, to find to see the spectrum, to see the generated pitches and some rhythmical also references and generated from the program, which I use here, as you see, to orchestrate the part of the instruments. But regarding the timbre, I just let my imagination work. I was completely free to decide. And as you see, macrostructurally, it's like an ascending glissando. You see, till here. Maybe the definition is not very good to the...
No, it's okay, because we see the... Peut-être, Sophia, je redis en français par rapport à Orchidea, parce que je pense que,
Okay.
juste pour Lou, pour clarifier, en fait, Orchidea, c'est un logiciel qui a été développé par un ancien de l'IRCAM, dans lequel tu fais écouter au logiciel un fichier audio. Donc tu peux mettre le glissando comme l'a dit, tu peux mettre un bruit de gong, tu peux mettre une porte qui grince, tu peux mettre aussi de la musique écrite si tu veux, ce que tu veux. Le logiciel, tu lui donnes également une solution orchestrale, c'est-à-dire tu lui dis j'ai 3 violons, 2 altos, un violoncelle, une contrebasse, un tuba, machin, etc. Tu donnes la solution orchestrale. Et lui, ce qu'il va faire, c'est qu'il va te proposer des solutions d'orchestration qui correspondent à ton fichier audio. Alors évidemment, si tu lui demandes d'analyser un morceau de symphonie, c'est débile parce qu'il va te ressortir la même chose en sortie, a priori. Mais ce qui est intéressant, c'est quand tu as des sons avec des hauteurs pas quantifiables, quand tu as des sons, je reprends l'exemple des gongs, enfin des choses comme ça, tu lui mets par exemple un son de gong et lui il va te dire avec ta formule instrumentale que tu as, voilà, je te propose un certain nombre de solutions pour faire sonner ton orchestre comme un gong, en gros, tu vois. Non, dans l'autre sens, c'est complètement autre chose. Dans l'autre sens, c'est complètement autre chose. C'est que tu avais la réalisation instrumentale, tu avais un fichier MIDI qui correspond simplement à la partition, qui est basé sur la partition, et tu en sortais l'électronique que tu pouvais remettre par-dessus, qui était une construction électronique du truc. Mais Orchidea, c'est un truc très intéressant parce que ça permet de générer de l'orchestration.
To discover,
Voilà.
discover what happened, it's like a representation of what happened to the electronics. In notes,
Yeah.
okay, very
And
easily.
it's very interesting for unnormal sound, let's say. Sound that are not, of course, in the orchestra. I mean, sound that are outside of the scope of the
something
normal
that
sounds
more
that
like
timbre.
particular content in
Yeah.
the spectrum. You can analyze and to see exactly ways to orchestrate this and potential options you have. It's very heavy program. I don't suggest. Yeah, it's too much. So you can just like use it for really short. Impossible like to use all these glissando in the same time. You need to give shorter parts. Anyway, these are some bars of the score that correspond to this particular sound I show you before. And as you see, all of these kind of rhythmical structures are generated by Orchidea, and also the pitches. And I decide like to use a sort of micropolyphony in the part of the strings, which means like notes that around, like movements around the same notes, very short movements around the same notes. At the same time, I have different combination of harmonic sounds. You see here in the contrabass, we have a sort of very fast glissando with harmonics. And also some harmonic trills or different kind of wah-wah effects in the trumpet, and in the French horn you have a kind of wah-wah using different consonances inside the instrument, vowels, and also some timbral trills in the part of the winds. And in the percussions we have a kind of waterphone sound, waterphone percussion, with a bow and also some cymbal on timpani that, with the use of the pedal, create this kind of oscillation sound and interesting sound effects. This is gonna be a little bit complicated.
But that's interesting, I guess. That
Okay.
gives
But I
some new
saw.
approach for a lot of people.
I swear, after we're gonna have a break because I am gonna give you really less technical information about the next pieces. So here, in the last part of the piece, is finishing. The idea was actually to use two texts, one by Herodotus, okay, and one by Homer. I told you before that there are references to this battle in the text of both of them, and which refer to the battle and between the pygmies and the cranes, and especially to the Greek myth. We have a myth that it's called the myth of Hinoi, and it speaks about this battle. In a different way, but the principle is always the same. And I was looking to find a more poetic way how I can involve these two texts in my music. You know, like a moral, the moral that emerges in the end of each myth. So we initially recorded my voice, reciting various experts of the two texts. One is in ancient Greek and the other is in Greek modern Greek. And we found the exact rhythm of the recitation of the voice. And so I used after to the music. Regarding the pitches, I use, you know, that the voice, when we speak, it doesn't, it has a very short range normally. So I just create a kind of pseudo-melodic, you know, very short movements around the same notes with the exact rhythm we found in the voice. And I also use some quatertones, you know, to create more this kind of speechy, I don't know how to say, sound in natural, yes. And at this point, I also wanted to arrive like to a subtlety and purity regarding the orchestration, and to use. I say, why don't use just the strings, like a moment of. So I use the strings like a string quartet finally, and about the timbre, I was completely free to find the sound that inspired me the most. And I like the idea of preparing strings with small wooden pegs, you know, quite close to the. That depends on the length of each chord. It's not the same distance for each string, but it's like around 1.5 to 2 centimeters from the ponticello. Okay, so there it creates now it struggles the string and creates a kind of breathy multiphonic sound. And I imagine it like I don't know. I had this sound of a broken machine, voice machine in my mind. I think that it worked in this way. So here comes the use of the formatization. Okay, it's like you impose the spectral envelope of a vowel sound to the spectrum of another sound, any other sound, and the result is that the spectral envelope of the other sound is replaced by that one of the vowel sound, but the spectrum content remains the same, which make a big difference with the cross synthesis, okay, which is imposing all the parts of both spectrum envelope and content. So we formatize the voice and the speech, in various ways, even using it's a little bit complicated. Even using the concatenation of the voice through Scatar for Live, it's another program. So imagine it's an accumulation of different treatments that brings a very organic sound result finally, and it's mostly for a sound for vowel sounds. You want to imitate somehow the voice. We also used other treatments like chromax, formants. Yes. It's too me too. When I started working on this, I didn't know the formatization. It's not easy to.
Your result is applying the format to the orchestra, to the writing of the instruments. Donc l'idée c'est que on prend les textes récités à la voix, ce qui nous génère des enveloppes en fait. Ça nous génère l'enveloppe, c'est-à-dire la forme, si vous voulez, de la façon dont les inflexions de la voix, l'enveloppe, vous voyez ce que c'est, l'enveloppe d'un son? The envelope of a sound, everybody's familiar with that? Donc ça monte, ça reste, ça redescend, etc., ça rebaisse. Comme il y en a jamais, vous avez fait jouer avec des synthés? Si. Sur les synthés, il y a une enveloppe pour déterminer comment le son est. Donc on prend l'enveloppe de la voix et en fait, on va appliquer ça, on va l'extraire et appliquer ça à de l'écriture instrumentale ou à de l'écriture électronique pour faire en sorte que ça sonne, que l'écriture ait une qualité vocale dans la façon dont les sons vont être produits. Donc on cherche à imiter en fait le son de la voix, et ce qui caractérise le son de la voix, quand Sophia parle de formant, c'est ces variations d'enveloppe, cette façon dont les enveloppes évoluent, qu'on appelle les formants, quoi. Voilà. Est-ce que c'est clair ou ça va à peu près? Encore une fois, c'est une technique, mais c'est intéressant parce que je pense que moi je trouve ça vraiment très intéressant que tu présentes tout ça, parce qu'il y a une forme il y a plein de techniques, si tu veux, qui sont des techniques qui sont là et qui sont des outils et qui font vraiment partie aujourd'hui de beaucoup d'un langage que beaucoup de gens tu vois
again it's really related to what you want. Me, I arrived to this particular let's say treatment because of the idea I had, like to have the recitation of the voice and to use the text. It's again the same process of how I can arrive to organic results between the electronics and the acoustic part. But it's not why I didn't use orchidea for this part. Yeah, I understand.
It means that for the kind of taking some characteristic of a sound, whether it's electronic or acoustic.
Only that the formatization is electronic treatment, okay? It's not, orchidea gives you like a result that it's based due to options, orchestrational options you have for the instruments, making calculations and several processes. But this is really an electron. It gives you a result that is regards the sound, you see. And for find the rhythm of the voice, we didn't use orchidea. I did it through Ableton Live by extracting a MIDI and opening it by Finale. It's much more easy to find the rhythm because I was not interested about the spectrum of the recitation. I just wanted the rhythm. Sorry. So here first we have the voice recitation, okay?
Παρά της λεγόμενης αν δράση πυγμαίης, εγένετο πες όνομα η νόη, το είδος ούμεντη, άχαρις δε, το ήθος και υπερήφανος. Ταύτη φροντίς ουδε μία γίνετο της Αρτέμιδος, ουδε Ήρας.
Blah, blah, blah. It's long file. So here is the first file. We formatize the voice with several other sounds. Also orchestrated by the strings having the same rhythm, and it gives really something really linked and connected. Okay, and that's the second one. It was quite interesting because you have the strings playing this rhythm. It's like a very hybrid result. And at the same time you have the electronics that match with the rhythm of the strings. And sometimes you have the voice is more clear, sometimes it's not clear. So you keep asking, is that a real voice or not? And here it's the score. It's just how I orchestrate that for the strings. So now I present you all of this thing, the music. We can listen to the music. Maybe all of this will make sense to you, and after we can continue to other pieces. I also made a video to follow the score at the same time. Frequencies are no, it's a question of balance because we don't have the high are you can a little bit. Yeah. voice, formatization. Cello, detune also the chords, spreading different harmonics. As soon as he arrived to a very, very low frequency detuned, like a rumble. So. So, do you have any questions?
How long does it take to you to write the entire piece?
How long? Kind of 9 months, I think. Because I also had like sessions at IRCAM to work with electronics. It was a long process.
So this piece has been performed. When does this piece has been performed?
The 2021, I think, or in the Philharmonie de Paris.
Okay. And
Cité de la musique,
yes.
with OIC, ensemble intercontemporain, et l'IRCAM. It was called.
Okay.
Léo Margue, he was the conductor, yes.
And when the band performed this, for the audience, was it? Did you give something else, or just the sound, or does the audience had something to write, to read, or during or before, or anything like a notice, a media, or something?
Normally, if I understood well, like in the program, you have
So,
kind
but
of
it's not think
program
by
notes, and
okay.
you just I of course I'm not gonna speak about technical things to the audience, but
No,
I'm
sure,
just
but
speaking about the poetic idea and to give some clue about this myth and all of this kind of representation and symbolization of this battle of these two elements through different sound masses. This was my personal research.
Okay.
Sophia, you gave an explanation about that when you spoke in the beginning. You said that you don't write narrative music.
Yeah.
Which is something important, because even though you have elements that explain the method, the inspiration and stuff, the music is not
doesn't
meant.
tell any story.
Yeah,
The music.
it's just music.
More like everything. It works in a more elaborate and range. You see, I mean, it's the impact that has the myth to me and how I can translate it and transform it into sound. But it's no, you can imagine whatever you want after.
Autre question, Stéphane?
So I'd never learned about any electronic music like at all in any of my schooling, and like just this explanation that you gave had me like more engaged with electronic music than I've ever been before. Where like who were some of your figureheads of learning to do these electronic techniques when you're trying to get into like electronic composition? Who were some of the people that you have studied, whether they were like electronic musicians or orchestral musicians who did like a little bit of electronic stuff?
Inspiration.
Yeah, inspiration. Yeah, who are your inspirations?
Well, I think that for sure it was my the experience I got at IRCAM. There, I think that it's a bomb of informations, and me, as I told you before, I had really not a big experience with electronic sound. I just got some lesson in the Conservatory of Boulogne. There, I just make my first attempt to compose acousmatic music. But then the IRCAM and my studies at IRCAM courses for 1 year that changed all the perception about the sound and about composition for me. So that was the hugest influence for my progress in electronics. And then of course, when you have to deal with such a project, and then you, for example, when I started Gérard composing this piece, I didn't really know all the treatments I used. It's something that you learn dynamically during the process of the composition, and that's great. Well, actually, it's the biggest school. So I cannot give you line names if you are asking for that, but more like I think that I was formed through my personal experience and experimentation with electronic sound, because I don't have really my tools. I don't have particular tools with which I work. I am completely free, and I feel that what I say before, the fact that I'm very instinctive and very intuitive as a musician and an artist, that gives me a sort of freedom, the way I compose for electronics, that I don't really like, I don't like when a sound gives clear references, and I prefer, I don't know why. It's really something relative to what I need, what the sound needs, and so there it starts the research, my personal research, and the electronic sound. I don't have like a library of sounds that I start really with a clean page, white page. For example, the piece I'm going to present you later, the Alice in Wonderland, which is a music theater I did. It's the most recent piece of mine. I did completely different things in electronics, because there I had different needs for the theater.
Yeah, I had a question, but you a bit answered it. But for this piece, so it was an order or a comment that you had to write it for the.
This piece, you mean? Commission.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a commission from IRCAM and the Ensemble Contemporaine. Oui.
So did you have any like directions, or you could really start from scratch?
Oh no, I mean.
So they weren't expected like a kind of atmosphere, specific atmosphere.
No, not at all. And if they expect, I don't accept. I mean, no, I am kidding. No, of course. I mean, we are free to do whatever inspires us as composers. I had just the commission for 24 instruments and electronics, and then I dig inside, and I knew this myth. I wanted to find a way to work with it and to get inspired from it, and so I create.
So what's
Little
even
by
your
little.
process in imagination? Like when you know that you will have to write something, do you like...
The poetic idea is super
Yeah,
important for
okay.
me. I am unable to start composing without having something in my mind, that a source of inspiration, that after, generate a poetic idea, and how I can transform it in sound. And for me, this is the most. If not, I need this source in order to be creative and inspired.
Okay.
Tu peux demander en français.
Tu as beaucoup parlé de ta façon de travailler l'électronique.
Oui.
Moi, je suis curieuse de ta façon d'aborder la musique instrumentale.
Mhm.
Est-ce que c'est très intuitif, par exemple, quand tu te bases sur du son électronique pour essayer de retraduire en son instrumental? Est-ce que tu le fais de façon très intuitive, ou alors est-ce que tu as beaucoup travaillé avant ça les sons instrumentaux, c'est beaucoup de la texture sonore?
Tout à fait.
Du coup,
Je
ça,
pense.
est-ce que tu as beaucoup travaillé ça avant, ou est-ce que c'est assez intuitif?
Well, I answer in English for people.
Do you
No?
want me to? I can translate. Fanny is asking about the fact that Sophia spoke a lot about the kind of electronic side of the writing, and Fanny was asking about the fact that for the acoustic side of orchestration, is it more intuitive, or is it more about stuff that you really analyzed and studied as structures that you might use?
I think that the one, no, I am sure, that doesn't exclude the other. Intuition for me is something that has to do more about the perception of the sound. You see, I mean, I'm always lead it from like my intuition, and I always imagine something. I have something in my imagine. After, how you compose it is a question, and there, of course, it needs to have an experience about the instrumental gesture, because working with musicians, it's the most important thing for me, the biggest experience, and how to deal with not only with orchestration but also about the form, which is the most important thing. I mean, how you can make a sound breathe and exist in a space, and how we breathe, we composers, that makes the form actually, the way we breathe, I think. And so, of course, it needs experience. Of course, I had a lot of, kind of sessions with musicians, not only for this piece, but even for my previous pieces. After, the intuition is something that it has to do with the sound, what I want to hear, okay, what I want. After, the how you create it, that's completely conscious and more concrete. You see what I want, what I mean. I mean, you can even compose improvisation. Everything is written on the score. Everything, each single parameter. Me, I'm also kind of control freak sometimes, too much. But everything is written. Even the sounds that sound more like physique and more experimental, let's say, all of this kind of scratchy sound. You see, it was like a moment with a Waldteufel that you pull the string, same time a very scratchy, slow bow, maximum of distortion to the strings, with kind of a fluttering bow to the contrabass. All of this sound that gives this kind of organic material. Everything is orchestrated. The perception of the sound, it's intuitive, if you want.
I think that for any kind of orchestration, it's exactly the same, because we're speaking about some quite advanced techniques and also the mixing of electronics, but it's exactly the same if you want to orchestrate something in tonal music for a quartet or for any kind of instruments. There are only two stuff. First one is your intuition. Second one is your experience. And your experience comes from whether stuff that you tried yourself and you failed at it, so you understand that you should do it differently to be able to express your intuition. And the second one is to learn with somebody who knows a bit about it. That's exactly what you're saying, but it's in a different field than most of the people here, which are dealing with another type of music. But
Sure.
it's exactly the same in a certain way.
But so, for sure. But for me, I mean, it's not a necessity for all composers to be intuitive, in a way that they imagine the sound. Personally, it's a part of my nature. I think that mon esprit, my imagination, are the most important things for me. And after, all the rest are tools and techniques that they just come to reach the sound. The important thing is here for me.
But you know, I think I would go further than what you say. I think they should use their intuition and what they have as it's, you know, the story. But anyway, but yeah, orchestration is not just learning rules and doing stuff as you were told. It's also using your intuition, and it's probably because your music relies a lot on sound in a more spectral aspect. I mean, like the components of sound. It's something that seems very crucial and very a necessity for your music. But I think you could say that to any kind of music. See what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Should come from something. Should come from something that is more intuitive.
But you say that, oh yeah, of course, if you want. No. You say it because you are also like come from a music that it's mainly constructed dynamically. So the intuition and the instinct, it's super important to make jazz music. Same thing for traditional music. If you see like the scores are super similar, just leaders. After all, the rest it's like up to each musician. So the fact that I was autodidact as a singer, and I learned by myself how I found my positions, I found the ways to manage my voice by listening music and by following different performances. That helps me, and I think that feed a lot my instinct and my intuition and my inner perception of sound. After this, we'll have more fun. I have less technical things. I have even more technical things, but I don't think I have the time to present it to you.
Yeah, just a short question. How do you think about the form when you compose, anything like that?
The form?
The form of the composition, yeah.
The form for me, we spoke about intuition. The form is something that occurs naturally for me. Form is, you can have just a panoramic view if you want about the macro structure of the piece, but in a very primary level. Form, I build it like dynamically. It's the way as I say before, I really believe it's the way we breathe. Composers, the form, and actually it's a very important question to make we composers to ourselves, because we see that you compose something that you feel that doesn't work, it doesn't breathe, it needs more space. So for me, the form is something that comes really naturally and occurs from the process of the composition. Okay, I can just have a panoramic, as I say, vision of the macrostructure, but after I really build it petit à petit, step by step.
Yeah, just one more question about the form still. Like in general, in your compositions,
Mm-hmm.
do you ever think like, okay, this is one part, this is A, like also from jazz background, but also like in music and classical music rondo?
That it's very precise. When I did, for example, my quartet for the à la breve, Anne Motaron, Création Mondiale, there you know that you have 5 miniatures, and so you do 5 miniatures. So they're clearly divided by 5 sections. But in general, for Geranomachi, for example, it was really, I built the form dynamically during the process of the composition and the orchestration and imagination. And it was also related to the electronics. It was really a live process. When I started composition, I had more this perception about A-B, A-V1. But now I feel that I don't need it anymore. This piece, Hack to Die, for 8 musicians, is inspired by The Pillow Man. It's a theatrical play. You know it? It's a theatrical play of Martin McDonagh. He's a contemporary playwright, British, and filmmaker, and I recommend you to see his films. What intrigued me when I was reading this particular play was how this whole range of emotions and I experienced through my personal reading, how could be translated and transformed into sound. And I wanted to symbolize all of these contradictory emotions he brings to his dramaturgy between logical and irrational. He's completely absurdist, McDonagh. So he's dealing with extreme characteristics like logical, irrational, or real, surreal, pure, cynical, very violent. And so I was wondering how I can translate and transform them into different sound environments. And so the initial image I had in my mind was a sharp transition between 2 conflicting sound events. So several subtle sound textures through a rather static, let's say, form that inspires kind of fragile calmness and serenity are juxtaposed with an obsessive mechanical sound consisting of repetitive and recursive rhythmical structures that I bring in the beginning as just a surprise moment. Like I like to work with, playing between background and foreground, something that happens once and doesn't have any structural relation with what happened in that time, and after more and more gets space and becomes the main structure of the piece, the main sound. Something important in this piece was I was experimenting with a percussion instrument, which is the Waldteufel. I don't know if you know that particular percussion. It's like a tamburo, which with a string you have in the middle. So normally you pull this and make a kind of scratchy sound. But I was experimenting with this, having a bow, so I achieved to a very interesting sound by using the right pressure of the bow and a kind of a circular bowing. I got a sound that I found interesting, and it's in the beginning it comes like a single element, in the background, and gradually comes in the foreground, and it takes more and more space. I have in my mind this image of a giant machine that creates a cruel yet poetic sonority. So I don't have many things to say, but we can discuss after we listen the piece. You can also follow the score at the same time, and I think I gave you already so you can just share it. in the end. And in the end, as you understood, each of the musicians had a Waldteufel of different size and a bow. So we arrived to this sound mess consisted of Waldteufel sound. Any questions? Whatever you want to comment. For those are Americans or they know the Holy Night, the Christmas song I used. Oh, Holy Night. It was the last part.
Which ensemble was it?
What?
Who performed it?
Well, several ensembles.
On this recording?
On this recording, I think it's the under contemporaine.
Good.
It makes sense. No, but I also had a very, very beautiful performance of the ensemble écoute 2 weeks ago. It was also very nice in Paris. That was I think it was a recording of the Megaron in Athens, in the Megaron Concert Hall. Mais tu peux demander à moi. Je comprends donc.
Le matériau musical que tu utilisais pour composer, est-ce qu'il y a beaucoup d'intentions sur tous les instruments?
Oui.
Est-ce que tu as d'abord constitué ça avant d'écrire aussi?
En même temps. C'est en fait, tu parles de performance notes, non? Voilà, le performance notes, c'est quelque chose que j'ai fait au final, au fin de la composition normalement.
Et comment en fait, tu savais aussi l'effet que tu recherchais aussi?
Parce que si tu as... Par exemple, il y a beaucoup de choses que j'ai utilisées à Géranomachi. Vous avez compris, des ambiances sonores que j'utilise avec la saturation d'archers, avec aussi le Waldteufel ou de certaines choses que j'utilise. Par exemple, je le dis aussi en anglais. For example, even in woodwinds, that I use them as resonators many times. So you have a kind of speech rattle effect, like things inside the tube. I have the tools because I know the sounds, and after I just compose with them. So if the question was like, yes, I know all of these kind of sounds, I already use them, so I know how they sound and how they work.
And maybe on that topic, you can speak about your relationship to the musician of the ensemble, because I guess that the way you learned all these techniques is by working.
It comes also from certain of the musicians, for sure. I mean, it would be stupid to hide it, because they invent many sounds that after many composers also used, like some multiphonic sounds. It's a particular technique that the finger follows. It's like an opposite bow, and the finger follows the bow, and you have a totally free bow, and you have to be between sul ponticello, and so it creates a very beautiful and rich multiphonic sound. It's a very particular technique. This is something I got, for example, from the musicians of the under contemporaine. But after, the Waldteufel is something an experiment by myself. And all the other sounds, honestly, were sounds that I already used to previous pieces of mine, like this kind of fluttering with different fingerings that doesn't correspond to any pitch. It's more like it gives different, it's like you modulate the sound through the different fingerings. But this is something I already use in previous pieces.
And at first, did you had a kind of written repertoire of the techniques to remember them to because there are so many?
Yeah.
How did you at first did you had to do like a catalog of stuff?
Not really. I mean, I composed. I'm composing since 15 years, so are things that I experiment and I know I use. Are my tools, are things that I know that exist. And after, it's always new research that you make for especially for the musicians. For example, in the next piece, I work a lot with the clarinetist of the Orchestre contemporaine, Alain Billard, who has an extreme knowledge of the instrument. So he proposed me many things, so I enrich my catalog, if you want, through him. But particularly for this piece are things that are already used in a different way, of course, in other pieces.
Did sometimes it happens maybe at the beginning when you started composing that the musical writings never existed, so you had to invent how to write it down for the musicians? Or?
You mean if I had a particular sound in my mind?
Yeah.
No, in this case, if I imagine something, I can and I have the chance, of course, and the opportunity to speak with the musician, because when I was younger and I composed, I didn't have any, I had just my fantasy and my imagination, and after, you didn't have really the opportunity to work with the musician. But today, if I imagine a sound, I can propose this to the musician, and he can propose me or recommend me ways of you can achieve and to approach the sound.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're searching for a sound, and maybe the musician will try something on his instrument, but doesn't even know how to write it down. So did you create specific writings?
Yeah. Okay. I have many. I can even show you in the score if you want. But I invent, as many composer, my personal writing, which is also important, especially when you're dealing with orchestration of the timbre. There are more classical ways to follow some ways of playing mot de joue, because they're already they exist and they're already used since long time. So you can just invent your way, you write them, or even to use an existence way of writing. But there are sounds that I had to invent the way of writing, because there are sounds that I experiment with the musicians. So, for example, this is something I do. Like this sound, for example, which is like a kind of rambler sound in the contrabass and the cello. So they make in double string a kind of multi-fingering kind of glissando, which is more for example, in the end, here the multiphonic I have in the contrabass with this particular key that indicates the ponticello, these kind of things.
La position, c'est
Yes, yeah, c'est la position de l'archet. Voilà, tu vois. Et après, j'explique tout en début de la partition. You have everything here about how exactly to follow the moon. But after, many times I had problems with musicians that you give the information, you give any single detail about how to, but after is really on the gist of the instrument. You have really to work with your ears as well to read the sound. It doesn't like I mean, even if I give you thousands of details, if you don't really, it happened to me for this multiphonic to have musicians that I couldn't play it because I can say you that free bow, or the kids molto sul bonicello, or try to find to follow with your finger the bow and to be stuck on the bow, but after, if you don't feel the sound and you don't understand, it's not going to work, the effect. I think it's also in the sensibility of each musician, especially when you work with the timbre, which is really relative to many different parameters. Le niveau du musicien, l'expérience, voilà, mille choses.
Yeah, just a funny question. When something doesn't work really with musician, if he can not really, like, he doesn't feel this technique that you would like to hear, what would you do in this
Many
case?
times. I have also a plan B, plan C, plan D. And I already know when I go, I know and I prepare myself that probably I will need a plan B and probably a plan C as well. For example, I had many times, you know, I have a kind of glissando on the instrument, so you get a sort of high-pitched on the body of the instrument, and many of the musicians, I mean, maybe they're right. Okay, when you pay such a huge amount of money to buy an instrument, you don't want to touch le vernis, and you are super. You know, you have.
You cannot destroy the instrument.
Yeah, for sure. I am completely against that, and I know that what I use, it doesn't really affect it doesn't make create any problem to the instrument. I hate like doing things that can demand the instrument or to. No, everything is safe, it's tested with musicians. After, it's up to musicians to accept or not, because some of them are. You can be very conservative and say, no, I don't want to touch the instrument. But in this case, I know I can ask you to do it on the strings, for example, in this kind of glissando on the body. You can like have a very short and fast glissando in highest of the pitch, and to have a similar typology of sound. So there are solutions. I'm not going to say, of course, no, you have to produce the sound, and you have to be flexible and to accept that it's on the each musician.
Tu parlais du glisser sur le vernis.
Sur le vernis, oui, comme ça. In the jazz improvisation, and you do stuff. I mean, on the instruments. For sure, and I also don't want them to use like very cheap instruments, because it's important to have a nice sound as well. So it's not that you don't care about the quality of the sound. So you have to make a compromise in this case, and to find there are solutions. But or I have, for example, a sound, you know, in the cello in the curves, the two curves that he make a ricochet there. Normally they don't want to do it because the l'archet, the bow has you know, this kind of and that's stuck, and you know, like dirt the instrument. I understand you can make like you just can mute the strings and to make a ricochet really subtle and to achieve similar sound.
Just another question. How long does it take to work with an orchestra to perform a piece like that? How many rehearsals?
That was for 8 musicians.
How long?
Do you work with the orchestra? Does it take the orchestra to perform the piece?
For this piece, you mean?
For a piece like this, how many repetitions?
Ah, okay. How many rehearsals? Okay. Depends on the ensemble.
So, could you give a few options, a few examples?
You know that they are very fast. So you don't have to say many things to them. and they are very effective. So 3 rehearsals can work very well.
I can give an example. I conduct a piece, one of the pieces I conduct that I brought to the Contemporaine. I just conduct the piece for the first time and everything was. So it really depends on
the experience of the musicians.
Especially with these extended techniques, it really depends on the experience of the musicians. You might spend weeks and weeks to get the results, and you can do it in just a few performances. It's really depending on the musicians. So you have to always to be aware, but it's the same in our field. And it's exactly what we are going to deal with at the end of, and you're going to be part of it, is that you have to be aware of the people that you're writing for.
And I can assure you that, because I had also bad experience with this piece. I know we are live on Facebook, I'm not going to give any information, but it's normal. So when you deal with timbre, and it's also possible to have a really bad version of it can just don't work, the piece. But the music is there. Me, I know how it sounds. But after, when you give the music to the hand of other people, everything is possible. There are people, they understand, they can really dig to the sound and give the best, and other than maybe all of this is like a new language for them, so they cannot like find the code. But even with good musicians, we had like problem with the Waldteufel sound, and this for the string players was much more easy because they know how to deal with a bow, but for the woodwinds, it was really new to manage the Waldteufel with the circular bowing and pressure and all of this. Plus, I have many parameters about the pressure and different dimensions of the pressure, so it was a little bit difficult to follow. But I think that the result was quite.
About your work ethic, like especially like when you don't have a commission to write, like do you have a daily practice, like a routine of like you try to write every day a little something, or to write ideas, maybe it's like words, or how do you manage that?
I would love to have this routine and to have this discipline, first of all, to say that I'm working 8 hours per day, but it's really relative to many different parameters. First of all, if I have the time to do it. Second, if I have l'esprit to do it, because there are days that are more productive and other that maybe you spend time for nothing. But it's also very important to pass from this state. Because, for example, for my music theater, de l'autre côté d'Alice, I'm going to present you later, I passed a lot of time by doing things that didn't convince me at all. And after, I just was super fast in other things. So it's really relative to many, many parameters. But no, I don't have a certain routine. I try to do it every day, if it's possible, but I don't have like 8 hours per day that I am focused and I'm productive and etc.
But it's always like piece related?
Yes, for sure. It's relative. It's a full-time job actually for us that we are freelancers, and it's you have a piece, you have a commission. There is a deadline that gives you signs, and you have to work.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't have a commission, and like if you have like a practice for.
When I didn't have commissions and I compose for my studies, or because I wanted, maybe there I was a little bit more free regarding the time and the pressure I had to finish something.
what you said about, I think it's important to outline what you said is that unproductive days are productive.
Of
in a
course,
certain way.
are much more productive than the productive, because to arrive to the productive, you have to pass
Yes.
from the unproductive day.
And this is something sometimes very difficult to understand because people have a vision of composition that is mostly very romantic.
Oh, no,
Like, you know,
you
see what I mean?
I can assure you that each piece for me, I feel like I start from zero. I feel I don't know anything, and I don't know how to compose. But it's something that comes like with how to say, fiction, with a working. You find the way, and this is the beauty of creation for me. Speaking with other composers, hopefully it's the same for them. I mean, this syndrome of impostor that we don't think we know how to compose, but it's normal, because if you think what creation is, you start from the zero, literally, when you start composing a piece. Even if you have the tools, it's a new adventure every time for me. Notre parcours.
I was also wondering if you work sometime with like improvisation, an improviser.
Of course.
Beside him.
We have a new project with Frédéric Morin and Andy Elmer, l'un des contemporains et l'ONG, le musicien de Orchestre national jazz, where I found it very interesting, because there you have really to marry them, to marry improvisation and something fixed and defined, and how to deal between this. It's quite difficult when you know how to organize everything. For me, that I am intuitive, I learned how to define something that by its nature it's free as a sound in my mind, but after you have to get a distance and to trust musicians and to find a way to lead them where you want, but to give them also the freedom to choose for you. So I found this, this groove between the two very interesting. How you can pass from something completely fixed and written on the score to something more free, and how you can arrive to the result you desire by giving as less information possible. This is another sort of working with the musicians. And of course, it's also related to the level of the experience of the musician, the musicality that they have, many things. Working with improvisation, in that level, yes. I mean, in a way that you work with an ensemble and they improvise, and you give just, you invent a system. It's important to invent a system that can work, and because it can be tricky, because giving sometimes many informations, maybe you can block and the process, and finally don't arrive to what you imagine. So it was completely new for me to invent another system, the right system that corresponds to what I want to hear. But it was, yes, the first time I work in this kind of project, which is, linked with two different worlds: the music of the jazz music and the contemporary music. Even if we don't have really an aesthetic, I think, direction in this project, the idea was to be completely free. We don't call like contemporary music or jazz music. It's just open.
I have a more open question because we are talking about like contemporary music for today, and I would like to ask you, what is for you the future of contemporary music? Because
My God.
now just to have your what you think about it, because like here we are like it's a very close milieu, and it's for there is not a lot of people who are listening to this type of music, and I wonder what will be going, because we want to write this music, but also we want people to hear it, so it's like a difficult question to imagine.
This is a difficult question. And of course, I don't think that I can answer just... It cannot be answered by an answer, if you want. But I personally feel somehow we arrived to an end of a cycle. This is my personal feeling about what contemporary music, where contemporary music is today. And I feel more and more people try to go out of this cycle and to find other solutions and other ways. Personally, I ask myself a lot about what I want to do truly. I mean, as an artist, what speaks to me, what is closer to my aesthetic, to my identity. Yeah, I don't know if I have the answer. What is the contemporary music of the future? But I just feel that we arrive somehow. I don't know, Frédéric, if you, what do you think about it?
It's the same answer as you said. It's a very complicated subject because I'm not sure that I'm qualified to give an answer and speaking for other people than what I personally think, anyway. But it's true that I feel like you, that we are at some turning point, probably. And it has to do with the music, but it also has to do with the means of production that are really changing in the last decade, I would say. So my main fear, is that there is less and less music that is written for large ensemble. And when I say large ensemble, I mean musical ensemble with more than 6, 7, 8 people. And what I feel that in the last 20 years, what I've been experiencing is that there is less and less and less music created for. And in a certain way, this is my own vision of the music, and I guess that's it's common for a lot of people who write music. This is I feel this like something quite sad and quite difficult as a composer, because I think that most of us, one of the reasons we are writing music, it's also because we've been listening to music played by a large group of people, and that is producing and doing stuff that you can do with smaller ensembles. And that's my main fear for the next few years, is that the means of production will tend to make more and more smaller stuff. And we see that also in the jazz scene. It has started probably 10, 15 years ago, this kind of movement. The large ensembles, they used to manage to play, 15, 12, 20 gigs a year, between 10 and 20. Now, if you try to find somebody who can play more than 5 gigs, 3, 4 a year with a large ensemble, good luck. And I'm speaking about people that were doing 20 gigs 15 years ago. So
and you think that is relative to what?
The fact that there is less importance of the music compared to other aspects like marketing and communication. And it's true also, that it's also the same there is the same problem in contemporary music too. Some people are very good at communicating, and some of them are just good at writing. and we have the same problem in our field, is that it has become something crucial in the fact that you will end up being put on stage is that the way you communicate more than the way of the music. The music is less important than it was, I guess, in the mind of producers and venues. And also there is not less money, but there is more people, and that's something also very important.
And there is also less money, of course.
Yeah, there is more money than 40 years ago, but there is probably much more musicians, which is great because there is great stuff happening. But also it means that the part of the cake
is divided by
smaller and smaller.
Yes, it's a problem, this, and I have also personally to deal with this many times when you see that they try to minimize always projects, starting by the instrumentation, after to comment tu dis? All what you need, by the way, to produce a piece. It's like this, and after you know that if you want like something to make it, turn, and it's even more difficult today. But there are many things I can say, but I don't want to say them. So go ahead. Here, this is my last piece for the 2024, and it's a music theater I composed for the. I'm sorry, this is like a coincidence. It's again for the ensemble contemporaine. It's it's true that I work a lot with them, 4 times I think for the time. This was a commission I got from the ensemble contemporaine in Gram of Lyon for a piece, a music theater in the Philharmonie de Paris, based to Alice in Wonderland. I was super happy, and I think that they thought about me because they knew that I am always inspired by fairy tales, myths, whatever has to do with the nonsense in general. I already had a piece. The piece I did for Cursus at Ricam was inspired by Alice in Wonderland. It was Keep Digging the Hair Hole for solo cello. So, thanks to them, I had this great opportunity to make a music theater based on the second book of Lewis Carroll, Alice Through the Looking Glass, which is exceptional. It's even more interesting than the first, I think, book. Both books marked my childhood, but perhaps today I found that there is a stronger impact on me as I keep discovering new reflections, timeless and very actual also. For this piece, I collaborate with Mélanie Lemoine, who was the librettist, and Aurélie Houbeau, who was the director, the stage director. And we wanted to dig in these essential issues and messages, because Alice is not, in my opinion, a story only for children, but also for, I think it's more an introspective reflection of each person, of each age. And so I say myself, when I got the commission, that I want to approach the music of Alice in a more almost spontaneous way and instinctive way, like Alice's imaginary world full of absurdities and contrasts. I also focus to the exploration of timbre and developing various sound textures framed by a dramaturgy of intense contrast and constant transitions. And I think that the spirit of the text leads me a lot. It's a text full of humor. it's very critical, annoying, but at the same time, other times very naive. And so I try through my music to create my own sound images through a palette of constant contrast and unpredictable events. When composing music, I almost have a theatrical perspective, and many of my musical decisions affect and influence the theatrical dramaturgy as well. So we really had a very ping-pong relationship with Aurélie Houbeau and Mélanie in the Liberties. I had the text before, but many things were changed based to the needs of the music. Same thing for the direction. And I prefer to have the characters be incarnated through a different sorts each time. So I don't really like to have a certain, structure in the distribution of roles. Like you make Alice, you make. I think that gives it's much more interesting and gives like a sort of different dimension of interaction, more inner interaction between the roles, and you can also like relate a character with an emotion. I don't know, I was thinking that during the reading of the book, I saw that Alice is getting more and more mature. So I was asking myself, since she's always represented by a marionette, the same marionette, so it's for I forgot to say that it was a collaboration with the Institut International de la Marionnette de Charleville-Mézières, and the students were incredible. So it's like a sort of théâtre d'objets avec des marionnettes, with marionettes, theater of objects, and at the same time we have the actors. But yes, I was asking myself, okay, Alice is always represented, incarnated by a puppet, but how I can give different dimensions to Alice, how I can make this process of maturity by diffusing her character in different persons on the stage. I don't think I have other things to add. I just create, because the theater, the music theater, it's around 1 hour. Frédéric was there. You can find it in YouTube if you want. I also gave you the score of this piece, so you can just have a look and to make questions later. And I just make a video with some extracts of the piece, just to tell you that the form of the theatrical dramaturgy and also the music dramaturgy is based to the chapters of, as is like structure on the book. So we have different chapters, and each chapter it's a new adventure of Alice, because everything is starting through, everything is passing through a chessboard, and every time you move, how to say, the piece of the chessboard, Alice moves from one environment to another. So that inspired me a lot, how I can create these different also environments in music, and it was very interesting, because when you collaborate with theater has a different rhythm in general. So it's a really dynamical process that you build, having always in your mind the theater and the rhythm of the theater, the rhythm of the text, all of these parameters, because you have to find the right balance. Sometimes, for example, I knew that this passage is super important for the theater, so it's me that I have to be adapted on the theater and the music. Other times I knew that the music lead the theater, so it's really, both sides. And I also work a lot with a singer. I forgot to tell you that it's for 4 musicians, clarinets. He plays from soprano to contrabass. We have percussions, cello, a contrabass, and we have a soprano as well, and the 4 actors that they manage puppets, objects, and they give their voice, but they are not musicians. So this was even more tricky for me to find a system to make them follow the rhythm of the music. And I work a lot with Mathilde, which was the singer, to find different ways of singing and expression and vocal characteristics that would allow us to associate a character with a particular personality. I think you will gonna discover it from. That are just some extracts, okay? It lasts around 10, 50 minutes, I don't know.
Alice venait de passer de l'autre côté du miroir. Il y avait là tout ce qu'elle avait toujours rêvé de voir.
C'est bon.
Alice venait de passer de l'autre côté du miroir. Il y avait là tout ce qu'elle avait toujours rêvé de voir en vrai.
Et prétendons que nous sommes tous Alice.
Alice. It's for electronics as well. Right? Sorry. I was working in Gram.
plus près. Vous pourriez autant être mon père. Merlément, 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 Mont de Marsan, Mont de Marsan, Mont de Marsan, San Diego, San Diego, San Diego, go, go, Gotham City, Gotham City, Gotham City,
Oui, peut-être. Alice n'osait pas contredire la reine. Mais vous serez sans doute d'accord avec elle. Quoi de plus jardin que ce jardin?
Des fleurs, des chemins, des... Bah oui, ça fait jardin.
Oui, ça fait jardin. Je voudrais monter sur cette colline, là-bas.
Douloureux tressera, ça doit le piquer. Précision avec qui c'est de l'avance. Je m'arrivais, ma qui c'est de l'avance, ça rappelle. Avec ses mémoires, il ne possède que fille petite.
Oh, petite fille.
10. 5e amendement promulgué par les de Nantes à vous.
Nous devons dorénavant vous appeler Majesté.
I think that, thank you. The video is a really better definition of this. I think that there's a lot of red color here. And if you want to listen to this, you can find it on YouTube. Things to ask about orchestration, mode de joue.
Sophia, how did you choose the instrumentation? Did you pick it up yourself, or was it imposed by in the commission?
I wanted a band. I wanted to create a band because I knew already that I said to myself, I'm gonna create my songs for this piece as well. As you saw, I wrote songs also. There are different ways I approach the composition and for this theater, and so I wanted like also something that can correspond to to the sound of a band, like to have a drum set, percussions, 2 strings, especially low frequencies, so I prefer contrabass. In the beginning I wanted an electric bass, but after I say no, I prefer like acoustic contrabass, a cello, a clarinet, to have also all the ranges, because Alain can play all the clarinets, and that's great. And I also knew the musicians. I already have collaborated with them, and as I told you before, there are sounds that I use and techniques that I know that they can do them, and so these are the reasons. I knew that I had the limit of 4 musicians. So I said to myself, I need percussions for sure, because in that way you have all the range and you have many instruments. So that was for me a first option. And after, as I told you, the idea of a band that can also make songs. There are many parts that I didn't show you that have really a sense of a real band. So I think that it was closer to what I wanted.
So in like a musical theater / collaborative context, is there any part of the process that later, because I mean earlier you talked about being the composer for that orchestra piece where you want it exactly that way. Or is there any part of the process later with choreography, and you talked about the librettist earlier, that it changed like what you're...
I will show you directly to the scope. I think that it's a good question. As I told you before, like for this piece, I had always to think on the theater and to be in contact. Or there are some times that I had something very precise in my mind. I don't know if we have the time to show you, but it's a crazy moment that I tried to imitate. I wanted to have different dimensions. So I had like the idea of a television that is represented by the actors, and also something that happened in another dimension, and how to switch from the one, like it's like you make mute and you make fast forward. So I wanted this kind of interaction between the theater and the music, and it was kind of tricky because the marionettes are not musicians, but they had to feel the pulse and the groove of the music. So I had to send them like a file from before, and they had to rehearse on it, to calculate somehow the time. Or there is another time that Alice go inside the ocean, so elle tombe alors. She's falling to the water, and that it was quite tricky to synchronize this, the theater with the sound that I already created. So that it was very precise in the part of the music, and it was in the theater to be adapted to the rhythm of the music. But there are moments in the beginning that you say Alice is on the chessboard, and she goes faster and she goes slower, or she's pulling, she's pulled by the actors, and there it was impossible to have something precise in the score. That's why, if you see the score in the beginning, there are 3 different boxes of 3 different events. So I say alternate the 3 repeated boxes based to Alice's actions. When she goes fast, choose box A. When she goes slowly, choose box B. When she goes, each time she ends up at point 0, because she arrives always to the point 0, play the box C. Or in the end, that was more tricky for me, in the end of the battle between you have the 2 actors with the small marionettes, and at the same time you have the instruments that they represent the battle like a box, competition. And so I create a sort of system with seconds here. So the musicians, they make some sort of sounds here, and every time there is like an action. I wanted to give this kind of physical interaction. When you see someone that comes to attack you and you react like very naturally, I wanted the same to the musicians. So I have attacks, and they have really to react immediately when they feel the attack. So as you can see on the score, you have this kind of attacks. And at the same time, there is a text. The text is free here, so she knows that she has 15 seconds, but inside these 50 seconds, she has also things that are written, like kind of...
And the musicians are following the comedians on this part?
No. The musicians the comedians know that it's divided by seconds. So actually, it's Matilde, the soprano, she's make the present. Yeah, she present the fight. So it's she leads everything. Here we had a problem because Aurélie told me that I need more time to the marionettes, because we need more time to the fight. The dramaturgy of the theater needs to breathe here. So there, I had to extend this part, for example. So I say to the musician, between react and to having attacks, just to extend the time of, when you are like So it was, I just had to invent this system that work between theater and music. And there are many other moments that music is more open, precise, but open in a term of rhythm, if you want. And other times that everything is super precise. And for example, this was super tricky. This part with the soprano that makes a... Because everything is written, and I had to calculate. She has kind of loops, and if you saw her, she conducts. So we tried to find, we didn't have a conductor, a way that can't work, because it's a repetitive form, and it's super tricky, and you can get lost. It's not difficult rhythmically, but the difficulty is that since it's repetitive, you can just, lose the groove. And at the same time, you have the marionettes the actors that are speaking while they're counting, and the marionettes are speaking. So I had to count the potential time of the speech, and to make my boxes and the repetition, how many times I have to repeat it, 2 or 3, depends on the time of the voices. And of course, finally, we found a way with Mathilde, the soprano. She conducts every time she has to do this kind. And it's also cute because it's part of La Reine Rouge. You see that she get decisions and she's...
D'autres questions?
But my question is more related about your instrumental work than about your opera. But it's because I wonder because when in a jazz group when we compose a piece, mostly we play it like 10 times or 15 times, a lot in concerts, and in contemporary music, it's like just 1 or 2 times or 3 times. So I would like to ask you what have you in mind when you finished a piece and when it's played once? Do you maybe you wanted to play it another time, or what have you in mind?
For me, you mean?
Yes, for you.
Well, you know, when you work with electronics mutually, you work with the musician. So this piece is I already had the sound in my mind, and I already had concretely the sound because I worked with the musicians, because if not, I couldn't go ahead with electronics, since for this piece I have live treatments.
Okay.
So I already work a lot, we repeat a lot. It's not that we made final repetitions. If you want, the final repetitions were more to synchronize theater with music.
Yes, it was not my question, sorry.
Not for this particular piece.
No,
in
it's
general.
like, in general, because when you compose a piece, normally it's played by an ensemble, but it's like, I think, just 1 or 2 times, and then the piece is like finished, and so, and it was, what are you thinking about? Because, in other music we play like 10 times the piece
now
we
I
compose.
understand the question. So you mean about the diffusion of the... Yes, this is a problem. I mean, it's hard for us, especially when you work for such a long time and you give all your energy, not only you, because it's a collective work, and you give a year of full energy and rehearsals, not the musicians, me from my part, the director, stage director, the librettist. So after it's not very positive that it's difficult to make it be to tourner, like to contemporary music we have this problem. And unfortunately, when you have like limited budget and you have dispositif, which is quite important, like electronics and a lot of instruments. And imagine for this piece, I did a lot, I've minimized a lot the instruments in order to make it as flexible possible. But even if it's always a problem for us. You are very lucky that you have this chance to, if you have, as you say, it's changing.
It goes in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it depends on the music you're playing.
No, but plus it's I don't know that it sounds I don't know, egoistic or something, but I feel that like Alice and a theater like this, I potentially interest a lot of people. I mean, it's not just a project for a public of contemporary music. I feel that it's more open and it can be like it's written for all the public. For me, you can for children, for adults. I mean, for n'importe l'esthétique de chacun. Je pense que c'est assez... il parle d'un public beaucoup plus ouvert. Et voilà. Voilà. Mais on a une date pour l'année prochaine.
Music that is demanding, you got less concerts, so you have to rehearse every time you have a concert.
And
the music is very demanding.
You cannot say, yeah, okay, I get my work and I present it with another ensemble, because this is really related to the to the level of the ensemble, and things are made for the singer, for this particular singer. You see all of these multiphonic sounds she does with her voice. It's not that all singers can do them.
Autre question? Other questions? Non, personne n'a des questions? Eh ben, merci,
You
Sophia.
see, I have all of this to present you,
Oh,
but
tu as encore des choses?
we don't have the time.
T'as encore plein de choses à montrer
Yes,
là.
all of this. I prepare all of this.
Je crois qu'il est 5h30 et
Oui, je sais.
je
Ok.
pense qu'on
J'ai
va...
un peu exagéré peut-être. Voilà, c'est fini.
Non, mais c'est pas ça.
Merci.
Merci.